And so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's gonna be a really interesting webinar on how to boost productivity and project visibility across Wrike and Jira. So these are two apps that natively won't speak to each other. And we're gonna show you through this session today how we can make that work. And just to give a brief introduction, these are our three speakers, including myself. So I could start with Carrie on the Wrike side, then move over to Fanny on the Unito side. Carrie?
Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie Slocum. I'm a senior solution consultant with Wrike. I'm excited to talk to you about how you can actually connect these tools together. And fun fact about myself, I live in North Carolina. I'm originally from Wyoming, but I've actually lived in all 4 continental US time zones. So been across the country and back.
And which is your favorite continental time zone?
Honestly, there's pros and cons to both, but I'm going to say West Coast.
West Coast. Everyone prefers the West Coast lifestyle. How about you, Fanny? I know you've lived all across the world, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Mark. So hi, everyone. My name is Fanny. I'm a senior customer success manager at Unito. And a fun fact about myself is I lived in Australia for about 4 years, but I'm from France originally. So apparently I have a weird accent that not everyone understands. Hopefully you do.
Awesome. We understand you. At least I do. So that's good. But I'm from Unito as well. So and I'm a sales specialist here. And so my fun fact about myself is that I'm a 3rd level black belt at karate. And so while I do look very excited on the outside, on the inside, I'm nice, calm, and collected. So let's jump in. How is this webinar going to be structured? We're going to start with an intro to Unito and Wrike Sync. We're then going to go over to a demo to see how we actually set up a flow between these two apps. We're going to continue with how to access Wrike Sync within Wrike itself. And then we're going to be ending up with a Q&A session at the end, so you could ask any questions that you have about this type of integration. So Unito, a quick word about Unito is that we're based in over 90 countries. We have over 50,000 users across thousands of companies using Unito to integrate their different softwares together so that all the information stays in sync, regardless of which app that you're using. And so today's use case is predominantly going to be on Wrike and Jira, but we have over 30 other tools that we connect with to make sure that you could optimize your work within your within the tool of your choice. Carrie.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Wrike. Wrike is a collaborative work platform, and at its most elemental, really that lets organizations capture, track, and manage the work that their organization is already completing. So I want to call out 3 facets of this program or of our platform that I think are important and are going to directly relate to why we're talking today about how to connect Wrike and Jira. So first and foremost is our flexibility. Wrike is a very versatile platform that fits many different use cases. It allows departments and teams within the same organization that do very different work actually track their work and collaborate across programs. Simplicity. Our platform is very intuitive and helps you use different tools to reduce duplication, have templates to generate new projects, and really the entire goal of that is to reduce or eliminate manual work processes. And then thirdly is visibility. Visibility not just within the Wrike platform with things like dashboards, reports, and custom views. We're going to talk specifically about visibility across platforms. How do we actually unify your workflow across the different tools? I'm going to toss it back to you, Mark.
Yeah, and on the topic of unification, what Unito does is basically taking all these tools that would traditionally be disjointed and siloed and bring it all together basically so that everyone has the same information. So you could be using Wrike, Jira, Google Calendar, HubSpot. You could be collaborating in all these different SaaS tools, but natively they don't talk to each other. And what does that mean for companies? Well, it leads to real consequences. It means that teams aren't aligned. It means that visibility into work is actually lost because no one knows what other people are working on. It means that collaboration stagnates because you're working your tool with your team. And so There's a deep and profound decrease in communication when you have disjointed applications and workflows. And finally, there's so much lost time trying to piece everything together. You've got devs and managers and directors who are just copy pasting information as opposed to doing the job that they're actually being paid to do. And so those main consequences that we really see at Unito, and why we think and why we've created a partnership with Wrike, so that we could break down the tool barriers so that you could gain visibility, align your teams, and save a lot of time and effort in your day-to-day. And that's where we come in. Isn't that beautiful? So how does Wrike Sync actually work? And what is Wrike Sync, right? Well, it's basically a tool that's being powered by Unito. And there is a version of Unito that lives within Wrike Sync so that the integration is much easier to set up. So just to touch on the really important bullet points here, we set up two-way syncs between Wrike account and 13 integrated systems, one of them being Jira. We could sync projects, tasks, issues, so that you could gain better visibility and much better communication. Your updates are being run automatically in the background, so you don't have to even think about updating information. You could focus on your work and things happen magically. And the best part is that it's a no-code solution. So someone in any department at any level in an organization, no matter how junior or how senior, are able to use Wrike Sync and make sure information is basically kept in sync across the board. And some of the typical use cases that we see between Wrike and Jira are the following, from left to right. We've got an instance where you have different projects in Jira, all communicating to one roadmap in Wrike. And so it's like a many-to-one type of integration to align your roadmap with corporate objectives. The next one is the most common one, and that's collaboration between business teams and development teams. So we could have technical and business leaders and teams working in the tool of their choice, but still being aligned and still able to collaborate with the same information all the time. And finally, we have the inverse of the blue, which is the green here, where you have a bunch of requests in Wrike sent to work items for the IT team to be working in Jira. And so no longer do you have to have a manual workflow of going back and forth and making sure information is kept in sync. You set it up once, and then it happens behind the scenes. So how does it work? Great question. Fanny. Oh, sorry, Carrie. Oh.
That'll be me.
Yep. We're going to go into the demo.
Thank you, Mark, for providing some context around the demo. So I'm sharing my screen. We'll jump straight into it. If you have any questions, please send them in the chat and we will pick them up at the end. For this demo, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a project manager. As a project manager, I very much enjoy working in Wrike, and you can see here that I've got several projects that I've segmented into a non-technical folder and a technical folder. I have 3 technical projects, and all need to be connected to Jira, because for this Android app project, the iOS app project, and the website revamp, I need help from the developers. So I'm going to need to connect Wrike and Jira via Wrike Project Sync. Now, let me switch to the flows that I've actually built via Wrike Project Sync. Here they are. There's 3 of them, one for each Wrike project. And all 3 are syncing with just one Jira project called Apps and Website. So it's a multiple-to-one relationship. I could have built a one-to-one relationship, but I wanted to show something a little bit more sophisticated. So it's going to be multiple Wrike projects into one Jira project. And it was very easy to build because all 3 flows have pretty much the same settings. So I've used the duplicate feature right here. So it's super easy to set up. So what we'll do is I'll go into one of the flows, show you how it is set up, and then we'll show you the magic in action. So whether you connect Wrike and Jira or other tools, the 4 same steps would apply. So let me go through it with you. The first step would be about connecting your tools and your projects. So here we're choosing Wrike and Jira, super straightforward, and more specifically, my Android app project in Wrike and the apps and website project in Jira. That's all there is to this first step. The second step would be about your flow direction. So here, we're not asking you whether you want comments to go both ways or dates to go both ways. It's not what it's about. We're asking where your items get created. So in my case, I want to create tasks in Wrike to send to my developers in Jira, but I also want to allow my developers to have the flexibility to create issues from scratch in Jira to send to me in Wrike. Therefore, I'm choosing the 2 arrows here. Now that we've decided what the flow direction should be, we're going to decide which items have to sync from one tool to another. Some of our customers decide to mirror, we could say, everything from Wrike to Jira or Jira to Wrike. In this situation, what we'll do is narrow it down so it's only a subset of tasks that actually sync from one tool to another. More specifically, what I've done is from Wrike to Jira, I'm saying that my open tasks in Android app, in the Android app project that have the field called collaboration set to devs should go to Jira. I'll show you this field later on in Wrike. Basically, it's a multi-select. And what it means is if I select dev, well, I need help from the developers, right? So this is a trigger for Unito to send a Wrike task to Jira. And then the other way, if a developer creates an issue in Jira, they'll simply need to label the issue with Android app for Unito to understand that it needs to create a Wrike task. So now that we've decided the flow direction, which items are syncing, the last step of the process is about which pieces of information on these items are meant to sync. So that's your fields mappings. So there's no limit in terms of how many fields you can sync. We very well know that users in Wrike and Jira often have lots of custom fields, so that's totally fine. You can map them all here. Some were mapped automatically when I created the flow, which saved me time. Others I've mapped myself, and you can see that, for example, the comments are going both ways because obviously for collaboration purposes, it's better for comments to go both ways. But other fields like sprint, time spent, and epic, I've only mapped one way because my thinking was this is up to the devs to decide what epic it's related to, how much time, how long they spend on a task, and which sprint it's part of. So should the Wrike team modify this in Wrike by mistake, they're probably not meant to, but if they do it by mistake, it would not impact the Jira side. And you can notice that there are gear icons next to some of the fields. It means you can expand these fields and customize the mapping. So I'll show you an example that is interesting here for status mapping. You notice that on the left side, which is Wrike, I have more statuses than I do on the Jira side, but that's okay because what I can do here is say both the statuses to do and active equate to just to do on the Jira side. So I'm sort of grouping my statuses and customizing the mapping so that it makes sense for my workflow. So you don't have to have exactly the same fields and names in Jira and Wrike. You can adjust that afterwards in Unito. And one last thing I want to show you on this page is you can append the Jira issue number to your Wrike task titles. Sometimes, when referring to an issue, you might talk to a dev and refer to AW15 rather than talking about the name of the task. So that's an option. You don't have to toggle this, but I'll leave it on just to show you in the demo. So that's all there is to setting up a flow. And here you can see in the activity that all the operations were successful lately. Should you see something that says failed, you have the link to the item that is impacted. And if you're not quite sure what happened, you can contact the support team here in the bottom right corner. That would be the Unito support team, not the Wrike support team. And you probably have a Wrike rep that you can ask to as well. So let's jump into showing you how that actually works. I'm going to go back to Wrike. This is my Android app project. So I'm going to create an item. I'm going to call this "The app keeps crashing." And that's quite problematic. So I'm going to decide that this is a bug. I'm going to add a description here. I'm going to comment away. And I'm going to leave the sprint and the milestone empty. That's for the devs to fill out. I'm going to switch the collaboration field to devs. Otherwise, this task would never actually land in Jira. And what I'll do to get a little bit more fancy is I'll ask for a due date, and I'll add 2 sub-items. And what I want to show you with these sub-items is the first one, I'll leave as is. But the second one, I will change to collaboration is dev to show you that if you have lots of sub-items, provided some are meeting the criteria, they will sync to Jira, but those who don't will stay in Wrike. Okay, so now we just wait for the magic to happen. So while I was doing all this, you can see that Unito synchronized the task. And the reason I do know this is because in the description, I now have a line that says task is synchronized with this Jira bug by Unito, which is nice because I can click on the word bug and that leads me straight to the Jira issue. You can see that the description came across. I've got a label that automatically tells me where that's coming from in Wrike, which is nice to have. And the sub-item number 2, which is the one that met the criteria, came across while the first one didn't come across, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to change a few things here. I'm going to say that this is now in progress. I'm going to comment back on the task because the devs might want to indicate they started working on this. I'm going to add this to a sprint. And maybe I'll add an epic as well. Okay. So now that I've done all this, I'll go back to Wrike, probably refresh the page. And what I want to show you as well is that here, see how the Jira issue number came across. So now, if I want to talk to the devs, I can refer to it as the app keeps crashing bug, or I can say AW18, depending on what we prefer. So my comment from Jira came across. You can see that now the milestone in Wrike indicates epic Y. It's part of a sprint, and the due date has changed because the sprint I've indicated in Jira is starting in July. So my due date that I had initially set in Wrike changed because the devs are saying, well, we'll tackle this in July. And what else can I show you? The status was changed as well from to do to in progress. So I think we pretty much have all the information we need. To complete the demo, what I wanted to do as well is if I go to my backlog and create a brand new task, I'm going to call this with something a bit more original. Maybe your hair looks good, Mark, for a change. And what I'll do is I'll select a label called iOS app, because that's an issue created by a dev from Jira, from scratch. And by applying this label iOS app, what I'm expecting is for this Jira issue to go straight into Wrike in the iOS folder. So let me go there now. It hasn't landed yet, but now we wait. And here it is. And it's AW20, your hair looks good, Mark. Let's see, it's a task. The task type was set to task, which is perfect. And automatically, the collaboration field was set to devs, which is nice. And again, you can see that you've got a link to the sister Jira task here. So this pretty much completes the demo. Mark, I'm going to pass it back to you, but now at least you know how with just a few Unito flows, you can help business teams collaborate with your development or IT teams.
Thank you, Fanny. Can everyone see the, thank you, Jonathan. Can anyone see this slide right here?
Yes.
Awesome, Carrie. Do you want to show us how we actually find Unito within Wrike?
Sure. If you guys already have Wrike, it's just a few simple clicks to get to the exact screen where Fanny was demonstrating how to set up your flows. If you go into your settings in the upper right-hand corner and click your icon picture, you'll see some options, and one of those is apps and integrations. From that page, you'll see multiple options, and Project Syncs is one of those. Once you click on Project Sync, you'll see the screen at the bottom. To get started, you would select the appropriate app and then start building your flows. It ties directly into what Fanny already showed you. If you don't already have Wrike, or you don't have the Project Sync functionality, reach out to your account manager or your support staff directly, and they're happy to talk to you about how you get this added onto your account.
Awesome, Carrie. And with that, it's now time for questions. So I noticed that there was one question, and I think that may go to Fanny, but Jonathan, I noticed that you pinged me. So in your experience, do you usually see the mapping one way or two ways? And are there any pros and cons to that? Fanny, do you want me to take that, or do you want to go ahead?
I mean, I'm sure Carrie would have, things to say about this as well, but I would say most often users would set fields to two ways because that's where true collaboration happens. Now, when there's fields that really you do not want a team to touch, you would go with a one-way setting. But yeah, it really depends on the flexibility that you want to give every stakeholder, I would say. What do you think, Carrie?
Yeah, 100%. And I think Fanny showed the two levels of collaboration. So we see a lot of clients set up maybe only one system triggers work, but down in the field level settings, we absolutely see bi-directional collaboration in most use cases. I think there are some pros and cons, just to Jonathan's pros and cons point. I think really the pros or cons to setting up having both systems be triggering or being able to trigger the creation of work is going to be scenario dependent. But it really depends on what's your system of record and how do you want to actually trigger the initiation of new objects in the parent system. But I think it depends on your use case, pros and cons to both, but absolutely collaborate, send information back and forth. That's the whole point.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Carrie, but sometimes I see users start with a simpler, more limited flow. And once they trust, project Wrike Sync or Unito, whatever we call it, then they would go on expanding that use case and giving users more flexibility.
Absolutely.
And Jonathan has another question. So yeah, there's other integrations between that Unito and Wrike power together. Carrie, do you want to mention what they are?
I don't know that I can list all 13 right off the top of my head, but I'm going to do some of the most common. So Salesforce, HubSpot, we integrate with Google Suite, so Google Sheets, we communicate with Excel, Miro. So those are some of their most frequent, but actually Jira is one of the most popular and most common along with Salesforce and HubSpot.
Nice, yeah. And I think, Mark, you had one slide showing several tools. If I'm not mistaken, these are actually the tools that would work with Wrike, or some of them. So we can totally tackle some of these in the next webinar.
Yes, absolutely.
We can't give you guys everything at the first one. Keep you guys on the edge of your seats.
Awesome.
And so,
any last minute? Oh, sorry, Mark. I was going to ask if there's any last minute questions.
I think
we
it's a
covered
silent no. Wow. Awesome. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any other questions or you want to reach out to us, there's hello@unito.io. Otherwise, Carrie, Carrie showed us how to actually access Unito within Wrike, and that should be setting off to a path of success. And I'll pass over the mic to Carrie for last words, Fanny, and then we'll be able to drop off from there.
No, thank you guys so much for attending, and please don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager or your support staff if you have more questions about how to set this up and get it working for your organization.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.